Hi everybody, it's Bill Gilliland here with this week's Action Business Profile. I'm here with Mark Goldstein with Communication Mark. So what is Communication Mark?
Well, we write grants for folks. So nonprofit organizations, they're trying to raise money for their cause, and so they come to us and ask for help. And we help them get grant dollars in so that they can do what they do.
So what kind of nonprofits do you serve?
We serve all kinds. We've got health clients, human services, education, arts. So it's really quite a variety, about a third in the greater Asheville area where we're based, and then the rest are all pretty much out-of-state clients.
So how do they find you?
Variety of ways, but mostly word of mouth. People move around quite a bit more than we'd like them to in nonprofits, actually. There's quite a lot of turnover in the industry, unfortunately. There's folks that we've worked with for years, and then sometimes they'll move on to another organization and work with their new organization, or they'll talk to a colleague more commonly, and they'll give us a call, and we'll begin a business relationship.
So how did you get into the grant writing business?
I started as a journalist, and I started to find myself gravitating towards doing stories on nonprofit organizations and education organizations, and I felt like, I haven't really gotten my hands dirty in learning about this kind of work, and so I got more involved with it. And when nonprofits need all the resources they can get, so when I walked in, I started to get shifted immediately towards doing public relations and doing writing, and so ended up with the grant writing.
Yeah, did you go to work for a nonprofit yourself, or is this just something that evolved out of the journalism career?
Yeah, I did. I started working for nonprofits in the Boston area, right, and did some community organizing actually in Boston, and just ended up continuing with nonprofits there. Worked for several years, was the head of PR and grant writing for an agency there, for a fairly large nonprofit agency, and then ended up coming to Asheville.
Tell us a little bit about how you decided to go into business for yourself.
Yeah, well, I got laid off, and that helped me along. I'd come to Asheville and had initially interviewed for a lot of nonprofit jobs, and did get a job before very long, which was fortunate, and it just wasn't a good fit, and the business wasn't doing as well as they had planned, the nonprofit, and I got laid off. And so I started to take piecemeal work here and there, and before long I realized, boy, there's a lot of things that I really enjoy about this, and it seems that there's a real need for this here and that I could keep doing it. And so that was just about 15 years ago.
Wow, so you started the business 15 years ago.
Yeah, April will be 15 years.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's quite a run. Give us a success story or two.
Well, we've raised over $38 million now, and so and all out of grants, and it's hard to just pick one or two off the top of my head because I've got so many that I'm fond of. But we work with everywhere from small organizations that a $5,000 grant is big news to them, and then we recently got one for almost $10 million for organization up north. So the ones that are most enjoyable to me and that I get most excited about are where the organizations really are very excited about the possibility of starting a new program, and they work really hard in the planning of it, and you can just kind of feel that this is going to be something really exciting, and then when it gets picked up and funded, that's just a really wonderful feeling all the way around, because you know that they're going to get to bring this into the world now, and it's going to really exist, and it's going to be something meaningful that they might not have had the resources to do otherwise.
So how do you work with a client? How does that work? What's the process?
Well, I've got a process, of course, that I follow, that I go through every time, and then that part of it is sort of the science, and then I guess there's the art part of it too, as you know, that just depending on the person, you know. So there's sort of a launch process whenever we work with the client, and we gather all the basics that we know we're going to need for grant proposals or for other types of work that we're doing with them that are related to grants. So it might be gathering their audits and budgets and things like that, and their 501c3 certifications and all those sorts of things. And then we try to establish pretty quickly what the expectations are going to be in terms of the information that we are going to need from them and what they can expect from us. And we try to keep some sort of momentum, hopefully, that's going throughout that project. And you know, we also try to get a feel for the client, sort of the art part of that I was referring to. We try to get a feel for, is this somebody who likes to communicate by phone? Is it somebody who is more of an email sort of person and they like to sort of send quick responses back? And we try to meet that as best we can given what the needs are, just as long as we're really getting what we need to really create a strong product for them.
Perfect. So how do you, I mean, it's got to be a vastly different way you get paid for working on a $5,000 grant versus a $10 million grant. How does that all work?
Yeah, actually it's not. You just kind of sound like my father a little bit though, because who also has who's in the medical field and is an entrepreneur himself, having to start up a practice, you know, for himself. And I guess that's one thing about working for a lot of charitable organizations is that you know, it's the business style is a little bit different in that you know, you're concerned about that your fee isn't going to hurt the organizations that you're working for. And so not that you don't charge and that you don't want to make a good living and that sort of thing, but it's against the code of ethics for the most fundraising groups to take some sort of cut of a grant like that. And so we charge by the time that we put in, and we charge the same to do a $1 million grant that we do for a $20,000 application that's the same length. So we basically charge that way. And it really just varies by the size of the organization. You know, folks will make a big deal out of when we get a grant like this one that was $10 million that we got recently. But the truth of it is that if you're working for a large agency, you know, this was for a university, state university, and you're able to ask for grants of that size. And if you're working for a nonprofit that has a budget of $60,000 a year, you can't. You're asking for much smaller amounts. But a lot of times the same amount of work will go in to the project and the same amount of detail. It's just the amount just varies that much sometimes.
So what I'm hearing is basically if you think and believe in what the nonprofit is about, you're here to help them get the money to make it possible.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, and I could be doing a lot of other things, and this is one of the things that makes it exciting to me is to go into a group and see that they're doing something really wonderful, and all they're missing is they don't know how to talk to funders. They don't know how to sort of present their case. They're not as organized as they could be about collecting data that shows that they really make a difference in the world, and that's just not their level, their expertise. Their expertise is in feeding the hungry or helping people who are sick or whatever it is that they happen to do. And so it's very exciting for me to go in and find that I have a skill that can help them, and that's really all they're missing in a lot of cases is just to have somebody to help them along that way to do that.
Perfect. So is there anything else you'd like to tell the folks about yourself or about your business?
Well, just that if they're interested and they have this kind of need, they can get in touch with us. We're at communicationmark.com, and that tells them pretty much everything about how to reach us. And we write applications, but we also do a whole lot more than that. A lot of times when folks are looking to hire a proposal writer, that's all they have in mind is I've got an application and I've got a deadline and I've got to get it out the door. And a lot of them don't realize until they hire us or someone like us that there's a whole process to it. You really have to have a plan together. You've really got to think through what you're trying to accomplish, and then you've got to also be keeping track of what it is that you do to show that you've got the outcomes that you've promised to achieve, and you've got to report on those and things like that. So we really do a whole soup to nuts. In addition to writing the proposals, we do research on foundations, we do federal proposals, helping people reach out and find out more about funders.
Do you also help them write grants, or do you pretty much do it for them?
It varies depending on the budget of the organization and how they want to work with us. Usually we're writing it with them, and so they're providing the content and we're asking them the questions we know the funders will want answers to. And and it's a sort of thing where you might think the most important thing is to be this wonderful writer that submits proposals, and that's important, but really the most important thing, and the thing that we find really gets funds for people, is that they have a substantial program. And it's not something that you can fake, and it's not something that you can dress up. And so, so we like to work with organizations that have real substantial programs. And I think that we usually do, because we've got a success rate now of varies from year to year and organization to organization, but across the board with the organizations that are not just brand new out of the gates, we have about a 60 to 75% or 80% success rate annually, and it kind of goes up and down. But but by the time we vet the organization, the funders, and help them to cultivate funders and so forth, we know we've got a good shot at getting that.
Outstanding. So tell us again what that website is.
Yeah, it's communicationmark.com, and it's communication with no S at the end is the mistake that people sometimes make with it. And it gives all kinds of information about our services and more about what we do and how to get in touch with us.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you coming in, and thanks for and congratulations on your on your success. I mean, 15 years is a real win, and all the money you've raised to help all these nonprofits. So, thanks again for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Didn't seem like that long.
Yeah,
but
yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it, Bill.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.